Live only. Okay. Okay, so can anyone confirm if my screen is visible?
Wait, yeah. अभी
So I guess it is visible.
Yes, yes. Should we start the countdown now?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so good evening, guys. I hope my screen is visible and I am audible.
Yes, you are.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So we'll just start in 2 minutes now. I guess let some people join in more.
Yes,
Let's
yes.
start. Okay, so let's start now. Yeah. So let's begin. So today we will see about XML and mainly the layouts or what we basically see on our Android phone's screen. So here right now, this my application here. I'm mirroring my phone, my Android phone here. So right now, what you're seeing is here this my application, this header, and then this completely blank screen. So this is the screen, and now XML is used to display elements here. So whatever we need here, buttons and then text fields and the inputs and checkboxes, radio buttons, all of the UI elements we see in our apps, those are coded using XML. So here this is the XML here. So here we are in the file activity main.xml. So here we will write our XML code. So the Android screen which we see here, this whole screen is one activity in Android. So I hope that much is known. Yeah. So okay. So moving on, XML. So here let's just understand a bit about XML. So XML is extensible markup extensible markup language. So XML is used for mainly two or three purposes. One is data transfer between server and client. So let's just consider that this here is a server and here this is a client, and now data transfer needs to happen between these two. So we know that APIs are used for this purpose, but exactly the text, the data which is to be sent, it needs to be in certain format. So that format XML is used. So for example, this server sends three, this number three is sent by this server to this client. So now this three is received, but the client should know that what this three means, whether it is an integer number or a string value, or what is the significance of this 3 sent by the server, the client should know. So for that, some data, some metadata, some information about this data sent must be available. So that information we use XML for that. So suppose now if I have to send the number 3 and that 3 is a roll number of a student, so then it would in XML it would be like this: roll number, here 3, and then this roll number. So now when the client receives this complete string here, the client will understand that okay, I have received a number 3 and what is the significance of this number. So this is a roll number. So now suppose there is a web page and the roll number is to be displayed on it. So easily using this roll number, this identity, this data which was available, the roll number can be identified. So that is the purpose of XML. And another one is in the configuration, like these mainly Java softwares which are built, these IDs and stuff, those are configured using XML too. But that's not much relevant here. The point is that, like I said, XML is used to give some information about information like metadata. So now here we see in our Android layout code that this XML is written. So what is the purpose of this? Let us understand this word by word. So here first this is XML and then version. So whichever language version we are using, we are specifying that, and this is the encoding. Nothing much significance. Then this first line here, this linear layout. So what does this linear layout mean? This linear layout means a UI component of the Android screen, an UI component of the Android screen. This is here, this is complete screen Android. So here one component, one button, one text field, whatever is there, that is these are components. So here this linear layout is component of the Android screen. Then this line, this XML namespace. So now we have understood that we code XML for using the data, but there needs some constraints. Like here, if I have written this linear layout keyword, this word I have written a linear layout, but the interpreter or the computer must understand what this word means, and all of these properties which are written here, are these in correct format. So for that, certain rules must be specified, that if a person writes this linear layout, then there are two or three properties, those should be compulsorily specified. So these rules about this language, so like in traditional programming, if I just write, I'm making a variable, so I just write int and then this value 9. So when I do this, my compiler will obviously throw an error, because it knows that whenever I'm trying to declare, this variable name should be provided. Similarly, while using XML, there are certain constraints that must be fulfilled. So these values must be provided. So where are these rules stored? These rules are stored in this namespace. So here this namespace, and then this is the location of the namespace. So what this indicates is, consider this namespace and follow the rules which are specified in it for all of the code written here. So I hope that's clear. And yeah, just a sec. Okay. Okay, and then moving on. So now, hope this idea of XML is clear, and we will now see this, understand about this linear layout. So for that, let me just copy paste a sample code here. Okay. So now, as you can see, my screen is completely blank. If I share this, my Android device screen, you can see that this is completely blank. Now, when I add this piece of code here, this start service, this button is added here. This is a button. So this button is added here. So this button is a UI component, or in constraint language, it is called as a view, an Android view, because you are viewing this. You can view this on your screen. So this is a view which you are looking at. So this button is a view, and now I can have here another button. So when I do this, you can see that there are two buttons now here. On my screen here, there are two buttons. Now I have added these two buttons, so I can see two buttons. So similarly, not only buttons, I can add here many views. These buttons can be text field, radio buttons, checkboxes. This can be any views. So this views, and when I add here multiple views, so we can call these as a group of views on the screen. A group of views on the screen. These three buttons would mean a group of views on the screen. So, and this linear layout. What is this linear layout do? Or this linear layout consists a group of views. This linear layout here consists a group of views. So we can call this linear layout as a view group, because what it does is it groups these view elements. These views are the basic simple one-to-one components that we see on a screen. The views are that, and what this linear layout is doing is it is providing a grouping for those views. So this button is a view and this linear layout is a view group. So in the official Android documentation, this button component is called a view and this linear layout is called a view group. So I hope these two words, views and view groups, are clear now, because we would be using them in the future coding. So these basics must be clear. So now moving on, so now we will understand what this linear layout exactly does. So now if you recall, I just now when I added these two buttons, so here you can see that these two buttons got added here side by side on the screen. And now if I just run this code, yeah, okay, let's this just run and show up on my device here. Okay, so now here you can see these two buttons are added. This start service, this is button 1 and this is button 2. But these two buttons, this second button is completely overflowing my screen. It is not completely visible. And these both don't have any space and stuff like that. So we need some proper formatting there. So what this linear layout does is it takes these elements and places them one beside another. you can see that it has done that. This linear layout took these two buttons which I specified and put them just one beside another, and it's done. So now if I just add here one more button, you can see that it will just keep on adding these horizontally. So after the second button here, which is completely off screen, partially off screen, the third button which would be added would move even more out of the screen. So it won't be visible. But this is just to understand the purpose of linear layout. Linear layout will take elements and just put them on the screen one beside another. It won't care that it is visible or not visible, none of its concern. The linear layout will just put these elements one beside another. And now suppose these buttons, as you can see, these are added here side by side. What if I want them below? After this start service button, I should see the next button here below. Then this linear layout, these whatever these are specified here, these are the properties. So now I have to specify that put these buttons one below another. So what I'll do, I'll write this Android here. What this word Android means, it references the namespace which I mentioned here, the collection of rules for writing this XML code. It will reference this collection, and from there it will search for this property. And now when I type orientation, so my ID is suggesting me that this orientation here. So when I write orientation, I am getting two options, horizontal and vertical. So horizontal here, by default our orientation is horizontal because you can see that these buttons are one beside another, and now I want them one below other, so vertical. So I want them vertically, so I'll just specify here my orientation as vertical, and then add this another button here. Now let me run my code. Okay, so let's just hold on a while it compiles. Okay. Okay, so now you can see that these two buttons are one below another. So why did this happen? Because we specified this orientation here. What we told our Android phone is that, or the device, that take these elements in this, take this linear layout. What this linear layout consists is two buttons. So now this linear layout, the buttons are to be shown on screen. So how are these to be shown? Should these be shown horizontally or vertically? So we have mentioned here specifically that show them vertically. So it will show these two buttons vertically. Now if I add here third button, and here you can see that these buttons are added here, but just for understanding sake I am running the application again and again. So now let's just take a look at the app. Yeah, so here this third button. So previously this third button was completely off screen, it wasn't visible at all. But now these three buttons are visible, and these are one below, or these are in a straight line. Basically they are vertical. And now let's just talk about this button component here, this button view. So the properties here, when you want to make a button, you would specify, you would write this keyword button, and then it has certain properties. This is the most important property, this ID, and specifying this is compulsory. It is a constraint that it is an unique identifier, the identity, unique identifier. So when I just paste another button, we are getting an error here. These are highlighted errors. This is because the IDs of these two buttons are same. Because I copy pasted these, the IDs of the buttons are same. But for the device to identify each and every view component, it should have ID, and these IDs should be unique. So now if I just save, if I just change this ID, then here the error goes away because I have now changed the IDs. So this is the ID property. And then now here we are seeing the layout width. Layout width, what this width means is that here width of the button. So here this button should have some width and some height. So those are specified here using this layout width and layout underscore height properties. So now here you can see that the width I have given a constant number here, this 270 dp. This dp is a unit of specifying sizes. We would look on to that at some later point. But now this 270, I've specifically mentioned here that 270 dp is the width, and then this height is wrap content. So what this wrap content means, this we have this button here. This is our button, and it has some content. So what is the content? The content is a text starts underscore service. This start underscore service, these letters which are written here, these are the content of the button. So here wrap content. So what this wrap content indicates is whatever the content is specified, just wrap it. Don't take more than what is needed. What wrap content specifies is don't take more space than what is needed for your content. So here the height is set to wrap content. So what happens is the height, you can see that there is excessive width from both the sides to left and right, but there is no excessive height. The height is minimal. It is just wrapping the content. As much as this text, the start service text needs, only that much height is consumed and nothing else. So here wrap content. So now if I just change this to wrap content 2, now let me just directly run it. Okay. Yes, so now here you can see I changed the width to wrap content 2 of this second button. We have two buttons here, so I've changed the width. So here I made this wrap content. So what happened with the width is the excessive width which was there was eliminated, and whatever minimal was required to wrap its content, this start service text was consumed and it's done. So the properties here, so here there are some predefined options here. So the id suggests, when I start writing here, it suggests here, and if you want to see what all options are available, hit control and space on your keyboard. When you hit control space, you are here presented with these two options here: wrap content and match parent. So now let me just do match parent and then rerun my app. Okay, so now here you can see match parent. When I did to the second button, now it is taking the full screen width. Whatever width is there of my phone's screen, it is taking the full width. So here match parent. So this parent of this element is here this linear layout. You can see this linear layout is the parent element, and then it has these child elements. So whatever the width of its parents is there, same width will be of this second button here. This second button here will have the same width as its parent. So, and we have specified the width for this linear layout here too, that fill parent. So what fill parent means is the same thing. Here this fill parent and match parent, there are just some version differences, but these two do the same thing, that whatever is there of your parent. So now the parent of this linear layout is my phone's screen. So whatever width of my phone screen is there, this linear layout will consume that much width, that is full width. And similarly, this button will take the width of its parent. So its parent is this linear layout, and linear layout's width is my full screen width. So this second button here is taking the full width of my screen. And then this last property here, this text which I specified, so the text which you can read on the button, this start service, so that is the text which is to be specified here. And these elements have many more properties, and if you want to just see all them, then just hit control and space here. So now here you can see all of these properties are listed. So there are so much of properties. So for building effective user interfaces, all of these properties are used. But for now, we are only focusing on these four: this ID, width, height, and the content, or this text which is to be specified here. So now, just earlier I explained this linear layout to you. So again, what linear layout will do is it will just take these UI elements and just place them one beside another. And we specified the orientation here to vertical. So it placed these buttons vertically, and if I just make it horizontal, then it would go on and place the buttons horizontal. Okay, so now moving on, let's just see another view group. I'll just revise the words which I explained here. Views, we are seeing this one button on a screen. We were viewing this button. So this button is a view. This linear layout has these group of views, group of different views. So this linear layout is a view group. It is a layout and it is a view group. So what this layout, this here linear and a layout. So what this word layout means is that the layout or the arrangement of elements. So here and linear. So what this linear layout did is it linearly arranged the elements one beside another or one below another. So it did it linearly, horizontal or vertical. The operation done was linear. And layout, so what layout means is that just the arrangement of its elements. So here this linear layout. And now moving on, a bit about XML rules. I'll just tell you guys about some XML rules here. So all of this XML code is written. So I'll just take these rules. Okay, so here this first one is one root tag. So here I have written these two button elements, but this XML code, but it should always be in one root tag. That is, there should be only one tag, and inside that, as many tags there can be, but there should be main only one. So here this linear layout, this is my only one root tag, and then it contains this multiple tags of these button tags. So there are multiple. Then these XML tags are case sensitive. So here, if I write this button in small in lowercase, then I'm getting an error. So this button and this button, these aren't the same. So the XML is case sensitive. Then similarly, every opened tag must be closed. So here, if you are familiar with HTML or this just basic markup, so here this is the opening and closing is done in the same line. But here, if you can see this linear layout, so here this linear layout, this tag is opened and here this tag is closed. So every opened tag must be closed. So the closing of a tag is indicated by using this forward slash. So here the tag was opened and the tag was closed, and everything should be in double quotes. So here you can see that the content which I'm specifying here, this is in double quotes. So this is my actual content. This ID and this word and this, where are these coming from? These are properties. These are coming from this namespace here, the set of rules which you have specified here. So these words aren't needed because these are properties. But the content which we write, it should always everything be in double quotes. So these are just some basic rules about XML. I hope they are clear. And now, okay, now we will see, we just saw this linear layout, and now we will see this relative layout. Save time, I am copy pasting the code, but yeah, it's, I'm explaining everything line by line. So okay, so now here you can see that when I copy pasted all these elements, these IDs were matching. So there was this error in IDs. So I just went on and I'm just inputting random characters here. I'm changing the IDs. But now here in this ID, I just put this special character, this forward slash. So now it is giving me, okay, not the forward slash. Okay. So now here, let's just take a look at this relative layout. So this relative layout, what this does is, I'll just explain you. Okay, so here this tutorials point, this website is a nice reference for all of the basic Android stuff. So these UI layouts, the content written here, this is fabulous content. So if you just give this a read and then everything is organized here. So let me just explain the relative layout. So now here the definition of a relative layout states is that relative layout enables you to specify how child views are positioned relative to each other. This here relative to each other. So this is important. So what this relative to each other means is, here I have these two buttons. Right now only these two buttons are visible. Just a sec. Okay, I'll just run this application and then I'll explain. Okay, let me just reconnect my Android phone screen. Okay, so now my screen is visible here. So now what I have done is these three buttons, these three components I have added here. So now here these are three components. There are these two buttons and then this here edit text. So this is basically to import the text, but the UI arrangement is a bit broken now. I'll just explain it. So yes, here we can enter this text. So what is happening here is, okay, I'll explain a relative layout. So what relative layout basically does is it takes these elements, the child elements, and then positions them relative to each other. So if I'm to add here two buttons, here I'll just specify the orientation property and let me run it. So now I have run my application, but here you can see I'm only seeing this one button here. But here I have added these two buttons. One has this text hello and one has this text here start service. But I'm getting these only two buttons. So now what I will do here is I specify a property which is specific to this relative layout. It is the core property of a relative layout and it is layout above. Here I'm mentioning the ID of this the button here with this text hello. And now when I run this, okay. Okay. Okay, so this button here, this button hello is visible, and now let me just add this another button here and set these properties to the wrap the content. Okay, so now I've added these two buttons here, and when I run my app, here you can see that these buttons have basically merged into each other. So what has happened is these buttons are merged into each other, and now what I want is these two buttons to be uh, one on top of another in a straight line, or vertically I want these two buttons. So for that, what I'll do is I'll specify their properties here. So now for this button here, I'll specify one layout above. So what this layout above property means is here this should have this layout above. So now I'll just specify one property here, that this id, and this button start service. So here I just rename this to button 1. Okay, so button 1. So what this property has specified is, for this button there should be a layout above it. Above it there should be one layout, and which layout it should be, that is this here. This layout with this ID here, this button 1 ID, BTN1 ID. The layout with BTN1 ID should be above this button. So what it will do is it will take this and place it here above it. Okay, that's not working. Wow. Okay, so let's just move on to another layout. I don't quite figure out
And
what is wrong with.
you can remove the orientation element. I think that could be a problem.
So, let's try. Nah, that's not working too. So yes, just let's just
Okay.
move on to another layout. Let's just not waste time. So now let us just see this absolute layout here. This absolute layout. So this absolute layout lets you specify exact locations, that is xy coordinates of its children. So absolute layouts are flexible and harder to maintain, but the main point is it lets you specify the position. So now when I wrote this code to show the buttons here, I never specified that where these should be shown. Here these by default they are shown at the top of the screen, but I never mentioned that this should be shown at some other place. I never specified it, but by default these went there. But I don't want that behavior. Suppose I want it to specify at some certain specific position, then I would use this absolute layout. So here this code. So the first thing you see is here this absolute layout has this horizontal strike through it. This is because this absolute layout is deprecated. So the official Android specification suggests that this layout should not be used. But as the journey of learning core Android, knowing about this layout is a bit important. So we are covering that. So here you can see these two specific properties, layout X and layout Y. So these are the x and y coordinate of these two components. So let me just run the app and we'll see. So now here you can see that they are not at their default positions, and here they are at some arbitrary location. So what these locations are, these are x and y coordinates. So if you consider the coordinate system, then from the top left of the screen, so from the top left of this screen here, the coordinate system begins. So here from there, this first button is 50 pixels in the x direction, in the x-axis. So here this 50 pixels, so it will be 50 pixels towards left, because here, as I mentioned, that it would be 50%, 50 pixels and from the x-axis. So the x-axis 0 0 is at this top left corner. So from here at 50, this button would be specified, and then at here this 361 pixels. So the y the layout, the y coordinate is 361 pixels. So here on the y axis here 361, so here 0 0 begins at the top left, and from there 361 pixels, and this button, the that would be its y position. So now suppose if I change this to 150 pixels and I just make this as, let's say, 200 pixels. And now when I run my app, just keep this position in mind. Okay, okay, so now here you can see that this position has moved. Earlier it was a bit here around, and now it has moved here. So that is what absolute layout is. Absolute layout, let's specify this specific x and y position. So while considering development, it might feel that the using this absolute layout is the simplest, but there is one big problem with this layout, and it is varying screen sizes. Now this phone, my phone here, its size is 6.5 inch, but not all devices have the same size of 6.5 inch. There are varying sizes. So the suppose the total number of pixels on my screen are 1,000 pixels, and there is some another phone whose the number of pixels in the x direction, mine are 1,000, and suppose there is some another phone, it has 1,200, so there are 200 more pixels. So what would happen is I have specified this at this position here 150. So my 150 for my screen is here at this position, but for another device it might not be here, it might be somewhere else. So the problem with absolute layout is when you specify these pixels and the devices are of varying sizes, then it creates a problem. So if I just when we go here to create these, here you can see these resolutions. So what this resolution basically means is the density of pixels here. So 1440, so by 2560. So what this means is, okay, here it is given, so 1080 pixels. So the width here is 1080 pixels, and the height here, the vertical pixels are 1920. So this 1080, so suppose I specify the position 100, so the position 100 would be somewhere here. But now if I take another device, yes, so now here this width is 1440. So it wouldn't feel the same, because on one device the position is different and the another device the position is different. So that would give rise to inconsistent user interfaces. So that is the biggest reason that this absolute layout is not used. It is deprecated, but for learning purpose, keep this layout in mind. And there might be some cases where this absolute layout might be useful, that you specifically want to show any element at the top left of the screen. So top left of the screen, so you can just specify the coordinates here as 0 0, and it would just forever stay in the top left no matter what the device size is. It would always stay at the top left. So some special cases this layout is useful, but in regular development, like if you want to develop responsive user interface applications, then using this absolute layout is not feasible at all. And about all of these layouts and the content I'm covering, so there you can read about these at the tutorials point website. So here the resources are great. So here they have explained. So here this 2035, this one layout, the x and y. So here this layout's first point, it is here. The x is 20 and the y is 35. And then similarly for this another, the x is 100. So here, like I said, from left, so from top left the x starts. So from top left here, this 100, and then 85. So from here on the y-axis vertically, these 85. So here is the position. Similarly here at 15 and 185. So and here the important attributes, like I said, the id, it should be there with each and every element, and then this layout x and layout y. So these, the x and y coordinates, these should be present too. And then there are some other properties too, or okay, so this absolute layout, I guess, just doesn't have anything, because its only job is to take and paste. Yeah, but there are, so you can just take a look at these at here. The id, just there are so much. And yeah, these are some properties which are this have this strike through them. So these are deprecated. So what deprecated means is they are not recommended to use, and who recommends that is the official Android developers. So the people at Google who made Android and who have made all this stuff, so they are recommended that these properties should not be used. There are either replacement properties are provided with some better functionalities, or these properties are completely removed. So here, when you encounter like this, so understand that these properties are deprecated. But one important thing is, while you are learning, don't focus on these properties. Just focus on your learning. You should understand the concept. So now, for understanding the concept, you learned about absolute layout. So for learning purpose, using these is fine. But when building commercial applications, these shouldn't be used. So for learning purpose, here you can just use these properties. Okay, so moving on, now let's just take a look at this frame layout here. So we'll just first go through the definition of frame layout. Okay, so frame layout. So here frame layout is designed to block out an area of the screen. So frame layout blocks out an area of the screen. So what this means is, whether the element is present or not, block out the space. So let me explain it. Okay, so suppose this is my device's screen, and I want this much position to be reserved for a certain element. So what I would say is that on the device screen, whether or not this element here is present doesn't matter. Keep this much space reserved. So when the application is shown on the screen here, either some blank space would be shown or anything would be shown, but this space will always remain reserved. Whatever happens, there shouldn't be anything at all visible here, and here below, there can be any content. So one practical use case scenario of this frame layout is this here. At this top here, suppose we want to display an image, and that image is coming from a server. So it takes time to load image from the server. So meanwhile, here the text which is there, the text is received and is ready to be loaded. So you want to load the text, but the image size might be a bit big, so it is taking time to load that image. So in that case, you might want to load the text here, whatever text is there, and the image will load later on. So in such scenario, you would use this frame layout, because what this would indicate is, reserve the space for the image. So here the space is reserved by this box. This space is reserved, and then whatever content is there, it is displayed here, and then later on the element can be added. It is not necessary that the element should be present. The main motive of frame layout is it will block out the space. So here, block out an area on the screen. So let's see an example. So all of this code, it's the same code available on this tutorials point website. So like I said earlier, this place is a great learning reference. So I personally learned from this site only. So I highly recommend you to just check it out. Okay, just a second. Okay, so now here this app here, what you can see is that this is a black, just a square black square here, and then here this text here states frame demo. So here what I have specified is that this is an image view. The image should have been loaded, but okay, never mind. So what happens here is I have specified this frame layout. So what this frame layout has done is it has blocked out these places. So now here where this text is shown, this frame demo, so now this text frame demo is fixed at this position. So no matter what happens, this space would always be reserved. Even if this text would not be present, this text is coming from internet, and there are some other additional components like this black color. I'm showing this black square in my app, and when my app launches the app, this square, this color will show, but the text which is coming from internet, and it will take time. So what happens is its space is reserved, so there some other element won't take out its space, and then later on there isn't space available for it, so this won't be the scenario. So what frame layout does is, uh, okay, yes, so this here is this perfect example. So this image here, this background image which is there, this mountain and the Android logo. So here this image might be coming from the server, and you want this text frame layout demo to be displayed. So this might be whatever content you want to display, but the image is coming later on. So for that you need space to be reserved on the screen. So for that you would use this frame layout, and the properties of here, this id, and then this foreground. So this foreground properties, this defines the drawable to draw over the content. So here this whatever content is to be drawn, it is specified here, and then this foreground gravity, so defines the gravity to apply to the foreground drawable. So for now, for beginner purpose, just ignore all these three properties and just understand the motive of these layouts. Just keep their motive in mind, because at beginner level everything seems quite overwhelming, because you might be confused that there are so many layouts and so many properties and so much to do. But for beginner it is not necessary to just do everything. Just try out some minimal stuff and get idea, like a linear layout. Just try out the code and here you can understand. And online there are excellent resources, like just this one, only one resource I have mentioned, tutorials point, but there are many more resources, so you can just check them out. And today I guess we covered this relative, linear layout, relative layout, table layout, no, not table, this absolute layout. So for beginner purpose these are same. So and then here this diagrams too, so you can just reference all these. So all these properties, the important properties too are specified here, so an easy reference. And the documentation, the official documentation is the best place to learn, but at beginner level I won't suggest you to go to the official documentation, because it becomes confusing. Like here now I'm here to look about this absolute layout or this linear layout, but I have, if I have to search here in this document, then there is all of the information is dumped here, so it is just confusing to where to look on for. So at beginner level try to avoid the documentation. It is an absolute excellent resource, I'm not denying its significance. Only thing is that if you just jump onto the documentation as the first step, then you will get overwhelmed and will be confused that what to do and where to look. Instead just look out these resources, these online resources. And I guess yes, it's 8 p.m. So yeah, that's it. I guess our time's up. Are we done, Tejas?
Yeah, sure. We can stop it if everything is good.
Yeah, okay. So the code which I have here, this my reference code is again from this tutorials point two, because the resources are aggregated here, so there is no point in just redoing everything. I've just shown you some some places, and we might as well share some resources too. We'll just aggregate some resources from our side and share maybe a GitHub repo or something, so that you would have the one-stop place. Yeah, and that's it. So that was me, Wilfred, from TCOMPay, TCET. So yeah, it was a wonderful session. Thank you very much.
Okay, guys. So we will end the broadcast. How about we wait for 2 minutes? If you guys have any doubts or anything, we'll wait for two
Yeah,
minutes
yeah.
and
Doubts are
it's
absolutely welcome. Please ask any of our doubts.
so I think there are no doubts from any students. So I guess we can stop this broadcast, and we will be coming up with next session. So do register on our to the GDSC community. I will provide the link. And yeah, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you very much, guys.